What were both Anakin's and Obi-Wan's thoughts when Obi-Wan decided to take Anakin's lightsaber off of Mustafar? Why did Anakin react with such rage, but was unable to stop his former master? Greetings, Acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the channel. During their final confrontation on the lava planet, the newly dubbed Lord Vader would arrogantly attempt to kill his former Jedi Master, using the same move that Kenobi had used against Darth Maul years ago on Naboo. With a quick maneuver known as a triple Mo-Ki, a forbidden move, the Jedi left the Sith Lord limbless on the lava bank. As he began to berate him, he reaches down to pick up Anakin's lightsaber. After all, this was the weapon of a Jedi, and did not belong in the hands of a Sith Lord. But what was going through each of their minds when this happened? In most novels and comics, we are clued into the secret thoughts of characters going through important events, and today, we're going to look through multiple sources and discover exactly what Obi-Wan and Anakin were thinking about Skywalker's lightsaber. This goes without saying, but Vader intended to keep his Jedi lightsaber the way it was, just bleeding the blue crystal within into the crimson of the Sith. It was a weapon that Skywalker had used for many years, and it suited him quite well. Just as it had been a weapon fighting on behalf of peace and justice, it was also a weapon of mass destruction when it was used for revenge, slaughtering the Separatists and his Jedi brethren. Yoda had actually previously criticized Anakin for building a weapon of war, when a lightsaber was meant to be a peacekeeper's weapon. Obi-Wan actually has thoughts about this when he picks up his fallen apprentice's lightsaber. The novel for Revenge of the Sith says this: Obi-Wan picked up Anakin's lightsaber. He lifted his own as well, weighing them in his hands. Anakin had based his design upon Obi-Wan's. So similar they were, so differently they had been used. In this moment, Obi-Wan is using his own hands as scales and weighting the differences between the lightsabers. Tragically, there was very little difference in their weight and their design. However, the weight of Anakin's sins made his lightsaber much heavier in the grand scheme of things. At the end of it all though, Obi-Wan still knew that this was a Jedi's weapon. It had been made by a Jedi in Anakin Skywalker, and it now belonged to Anakin's children, with Anakin himself burning away on the shores of Mustafar, and Lord Vader being born from the embers. The weapon had once belonged to a brave Jedi Knight, and was now a gift to his son. The last bit of Anakin that remained was within the lightsaber, Obi-Wan thought. It was poetic and appropriate. So many times had Anakin used his lightsaber to save Obi-Wan and the lives of so many others. Obi-Wan understands the significance of a lightsaber and cannot bear the thought of it being used to take lives, to bring the galaxy to ruin. Even if Anakin was gone, some part of him would always be with his lightsaber. In strike contrast to this, Anakin Skywalker's thoughts are far different, or should we say the thoughts of the burgeoning Lord Vader. This comes from the novel The Rise and Fall of Darth Vader, where it says this: feeling the intense heat permeating his torn tunic, Anakin sighted his fallen lightsaber lying a short distance away. Too stunned and dazed to focus his powers, he watched with rage as Obi-Wan bent down to pick up the lightsaber, then took it with him as he began walking up the slope. After having his limbs hacked off in a single instant, Anakin is understandably in shock. The amount of pain and sudden loss of organic flesh would most certainly hinder his ability, most importantly, his ability to focus on the Force. As much as he wants to reach out with the Force and wrench the lightsaber from the ground, his pain eclipses his focus. The first time Anakin had his limbs severed by Dooku, he passed out from the pain. Here, his rage and the burning flame of the dark side was keeping him cognizant, but he had not been trained in the dark side whatsoever. It was easy to drink in the suffering of others and one's own rage to fuel a darksider's power, but to use pain to gain power was another lesson entirely. Anakin had become Vader that evening and did not have the skill and understanding. His pain kept him at bay, incapacitated. The stroke of Obi-Wan's lightsaber had left him so much less than what he once was. Imagine Anakin, the massive power of the dark side of the Force boiling to the surface, his body surging with energy, the newfound gifts of the dark side, and then brought to the point where he cannot reach out with the Force and claim his own lightsaber from the lava bank, with the contrast driving him mad, his power, what remained of it, almost mocking him. So much less of what it just was moments prior. He is forced to watch with rage as Kenobi takes his lightsaber, his life, Earlier in the passage, Anakin says that he refuses to die like this at Obi-Wan's hand, and in this moment, Anakin is literally staring down the barrel of his own mortality. All of his mighty powers that made him feel invincible this entire time were now fleeting, and he was at the mercy of his former master, helpless on the beach. Several years ago, Obi-Wan drilled it into Anakin's head that the lightsaber was his life, that he was always meant to care for it. This was a lesson Anakin learned the hard way, yet he had learned it. His lightsaber was his greatest prize, his greatest treasure, and now it was in the hand of an enemy, representing the very fact that Anakin's life was in Obi-Wan's hands. And then, his life, his lightsaber, was literally taken by Obi-Wan in front of his very eyes. This moment speaks to the powerful emotions that the two men were feeling. Obi-Wan, mournful and heartbroken over his apprentice, and that he has decided to use his Jedi weapon to end life. And Anakin, blazing with hatred and fury over his master taking his weapon and life away from him, all despite the power that he had recently gained. For both of them, what was happening around Anakin's lightsaber was inconceivable. To center this conversation just around the object of the lightsaber seems minuscule at first, until you dive into the comics and find out how many of Obi-Wan and Anakin's conversations center around the lightsaber and its purpose. The two of them butted heads a lot, but they shared a sort of bond over the weapon. As Jedi Guardians, they saw combat often, which of course only escalated with the Clone War. This object held a lot of significance, not only for Anakin's life as a Jedi, but for their relationship. In this moment where Obi-Wan takes his apprentice's lightsaber, this is truly the death of Anakin Skywalker, no longer worthy to wield a Jedi weapon, and a last thing to pass on to his children that he has sacrificed in the name of the dark side. Obi-Wan inheriting the lightsaber of Anakin is the final stroke of the Jedi Chosen One. He is no longer worthy, and this is a moment that Lord Vader will fixate on for 2 decades, obsessed with the idea that Obi-Wan Kenobi killed Anakin Skywalker on Mustafar, took his lightsaber, and left. But my friends, these were the thoughts detailed of both Anakin and Obi-Wan the moment that the lightsaber was taken off of Mustafar. A lot of the time we like to break down and analyze these seemingly small and insignificant details in various scenes. Some may find it unnecessary because it doesn't speak to the larger narrative, but in fact, the perspective that these characters have on this object, the events, and especially each other, gives us an understanding and an appreciation of just how rich and layered these stories truly are. What seems like a couple of seconds of screen time, just Obi-Wan retrieving Anakin's lightsaber, causes ripples, and waves within the web of these interpersonal relationships. My friends and acolytes, I would love to hear your thoughts on this powerful scene shared between Anakin and Obi-Wan. What do you think of Skywalker's rage seeing Kenobi take his lightsaber, and Obi-Wan's decision to remove the lightsaber from Darth Vader's grasp entirely, wanting to give it to his children as the last piece left behind of his friend, Anakin? Thank you always so much for your constant support of the channel. May the Force be with you, and I hope that you're having an amazing day.